A shared past, a fractured present, historical context of the conflict. The current conflict between Russia and Ukraine is deeply rooted in a complex and intertwined history. For centuries, the two nations shared cultural, religious, and linguistic ties, with Ukraine often finding itself at the crossroads of empires. A pivotal moment in their shared past came in 1922, when Ukraine became a founding member of the Soviet Union. This period witnessed a tragic chapter in Ukrainian history, marked by the Holodomor, a famine in the 1930s that resulted in millions of Ukrainian deaths. This tragic event is etched in the collective memory of Ukraine and continues to influence its relations with Russia. The collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 brought about a wave of independence movements, with Ukraine declaring its sovereignty on August 24th of that year. This event, while welcomed by many Ukrainians, also sowed the seeds of future conflict. Russia, under the leadership of Boris Yeltsin, recognized Ukraine's independence but maintained a keen interest in its neighbor's strategic importance. The following years saw a delicate balancing act as Ukraine navigated its newfound independence while managing its complex relationship with Russia. The 2004 Orange Revolution, a series of protests and political events sparked by a disputed presidential election, highlighted Ukraine's internal divisions and the Kremlin's attempts to influence its political landscape. This event marked a turning point, deepening mistrust between the two nations and setting the stage for further confrontations. The annexation of Crimea by Russia in 2014 and the subsequent support for separatist movements in eastern Ukraine further escalated tensions, culminating in the full-scale invasion of February 2022. Understanding this tumultuous history is crucial for comprehending the current conflict and its far-reaching consequences. Clash of strategies, military tactics and losses in the Russia-Ukraine war. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine has exposed contrasting military strategies and capabilities. Russia, initially perceived as having a superior military force, employed a strategy of rapid advance, aiming to swiftly capture key cities and decapitate the Ukrainian government. This approach, however, was met with fierce resistance from Ukrainian forces, who effectively utilized their knowledge of the terrain and employed agile mobile tactics. Ukrainian troops, supported by various weapon systems, including anti-tank and anti-aircraft missiles, inflicted heavy losses on the invading Russian forces. The conflict has also witnessed the widespread use of drone technology by both sides, significantly impacting battlefield dynamics. Ukraine's deployment of Turkish-made Bayraktar TB2 drones, for instance, proved particularly effective in targeting Russian armor and logistics. Despite initial setbacks, Russia adapted its strategy, concentrating its forces on the eastern and southern regions of Ukraine. This shift aimed to secure a land bridge to Crimea and consolidate control over the Donbas region, where Russian-backed separatists have been fighting Ukrainian forces since 2014. However, Ukrainian resistance remains resolute, with both sides engaging in intense artillery duels and urban warfare. The conflict has resulted in significant military losses for both sides. While reliable casualty figures are difficult to obtain, independent estimates suggest tens of thousands of soldiers have been killed on both sides, with civilian casualties reaching alarming levels. The destruction of military equipment, including tanks, aircraft, and naval vessels, has been substantial, highlighting the intensity and brutality of the fighting. A human tragedy, the devastating humanitarian impact of the war. Beyond the military clashes, the war in Ukraine has unleashed a catastrophic humanitarian crisis. Millions of people have been displaced from their homes, seeking refuge in neighboring countries or internally displaced within Ukraine. The United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, UNHCR, estimates that over 14 million individuals have fled their homes since the start of the conflict, creating a significant refugee crisis in Europe. Neighboring countries have borne the brunt of this exodus, with their resources stretched thin as they grapple with the influx of refugees. Inside Ukraine, the situation is equally dire, with cities and towns reduced to rubble, critical infrastructure destroyed, and essential supplies dwindling. The targeting of civilian infrastructure, including hospitals, schools, and residential areas, has drawn international condemnation and raised concerns about potential violations of international law. The conflict has had a devastating impact on the mental and emotional well-being of millions, particularly children who have witnessed unimaginable violence and loss. The trauma of war will continue to cast a long shadow over Ukraine. Even after the fighting ceases, addressing this humanitarian crisis requires a multifaceted approach, including providing immediate humanitarian aid, ensuring the safety and protection of civilians, and supporting the long-term recovery and reconstruction of affected areas. Economic fallout, global consequences, and rebuilding costs. The Russia-Ukraine conflict has sent shockwaves through the global economy, disrupting supply chains, fueling inflation, and exacerbating existing economic vulnerabilities. The conflict has significantly impacted energy markets, as both Russia and Ukraine are key players in the global energy sector. The sanctions and the subsequent reduction in energy exports have led to soaring energy prices, putting a strain on households and businesses worldwide. Beyond energy, the conflict has disrupted global food supplies. Both Russia and Ukraine are major agricultural producers, and the conflict has disrupted planting, harvesting, and export operations. This has led to price spikes in essential commodities, including wheat, corn, and sunflower oil, raising concerns about food security, particularly in developing countries that rely heavily on imports from the Black Sea region. The costs of rebuilding Ukraine after the conflict will be immense. Estimates suggest that the damage to infrastructure alone could reach hundreds of billions of dollars. The World Bank has estimated that Ukraine's economy could contract significantly, highlighting the devastating economic toll of the conflict. Rebuilding Ukraine will require a coordinated international effort involving significant financial assistance, technical expertise, and long-term investment. Section 5. Shifting sands: geopolitical repercussions of the conflict. The Russia-Ukraine war has triggered a significant shift in the global geopolitical landscape, challenging long-held assumptions about the international order and leading to a period of heightened uncertainty. The conflict has influenced NATO dynamics, with previously neutral countries like Finland and Sweden seeking membership in the alliance, citing concerns about regional security. This potential expansion of NATO represents a notable change in the geopolitical balance, affecting Russia's strategic interests near its borders. The war has also highlighted the challenges faced by international institutions, such as the United Nations, in preventing and resolving conflicts. The UN Security Council, influenced by the veto power of its permanent members, has faced difficulties in taking decisive action to address the crisis. This has prompted discussions about reforming the UN system to enhance its effectiveness in responding to contemporary challenges. The conflict has also underscored the emergence of new geopolitical alignments. China, while maintaining a neutral stance on Russia's actions, has refrained from condemning the invasion and has echoed some of Russia's narratives. This has raised discussions about a potential Beijing-Moscow alignment that could influence the existing world order. Section 6. Uncertain futures, possible scenarios, and the prospect of protracted conflict. As the conflict in Ukraine continues, predicting its trajectory remains a complex and uncertain endeavor. Several possible scenarios could unfold in the coming months and years, each with its own set of implications for Ukraine, Russia, and the international community. One possible scenario is a negotiated settlement, potentially involving territorial adjustments in exchange for a ceasefire and security guarantees. However, the likelihood of such an agreement being reached in the near future appears slim, given the current state of negotiations and the entrenched positions of both sides. Another scenario involves a protracted conflict, with neither side able to achieve a decisive military victory. This scenario could see the conflict evolve into a war of attrition, with both sides digging in for a long and bloody stalemate. Such a scenario would have devastating consequences for Ukraine, further decimating its infrastructure, economy, and social fabric. A third possibility is a dramatic escalation of the conflict, potentially involving the use of chemical or even nuclear weapons. While this remains a worst-case scenario, it cannot be entirely ruled out, particularly if any party perceives its vital interests to be under existential threat. Section 7. Beyond the battlefield. The role of information warfare and cyber attacks. The conflict in Ukraine has extended far beyond the physical battlefield, with both sides engaging in sophisticated information warfare campaigns. Various disinformation apparatuses have been deployed, spreading propaganda and false narratives through state-controlled media outlets and social media platforms. These disinformation campaigns aim to sow discord, undermine support, and justify actions to both domestic and international audiences. Counter-disinformation efforts have been made by leveraging social media to share real-time updates, expose atrocities, and garner international support. Governments have also actively engaged with media outlets, providing them with access to information and countering opposing narratives. This information war has played a crucial role in shaping global perceptions of the conflict. In addition to information warfare, the conflict has been marked by a surge in cyber attacks. Accusations have been made regarding a series of debilitating cyber attacks against critical infrastructure, including government websites, banks, and energy grids. These attacks aim to disrupt essential services, sow chaos, and undermine resilience. There has also been a surge in hacktivist activity, with groups like Anonymous carrying out cyber attacks against various targets in support of their causes. Section 8. International response and the quest for a diplomatic solution. The international community has responded to the Russia-Ukraine war with a mix of condemnation, sanctions, and humanitarian aid. Various countries have imposed economic sanctions on Russia, targeting its financial institutions, energy sector, and influential figures. These sanctions aim to impact the Russian economy and pressure the Kremlin to change its approach. However, their effectiveness in altering Russia's strategic decisions remains uncertain. Beyond sanctions, several countries have provided Ukraine with significant military and humanitarian aid. This assistance has been crucial in bolstering Ukraine's defenses, providing humanitarian relief to its population and helping it withstand the conflict. However, questions remain about the long-term sustainability of this support and the potential risks of escalation as international involvement in the conflict deepens. Diplomatic efforts to resolve the conflict have yielded limited progress. While several rounds of negotiations between Ukrainian and Russian officials have taken place, they have yet to produce a breakthrough. The entrenched positions of both sides, coupled with a lack of trust and the ongoing fighting, continue to hinder the prospects for a negotiated settlement. Section 9. The long road ahead, reconciliation, justice, and the future of Ukraine. The Russia-Ukraine conflict represents a profound tragedy for both nations, with long-lasting consequences that will reverberate for generations to come. Even if the fighting were to end tomorrow, the path to reconciliation and rebuilding will be arduous and fraught with challenges. The scars of war, both physical and psychological, will take years, if not decades, to heal. Accountability for war crimes and human rights abuses committed during the conflict is crucial for achieving justice and lasting peace. The International Criminal Court has opened an investigation into alleged war crimes in Ukraine, and efforts are underway to gather evidence and build cases against those responsible for atrocities. However, the process of bringing perpetrators to justice will be complex and time-consuming, and it remains to be seen whether those ultimately responsible will be held accountable. The future of Ukraine remains uncertain, but the resilience and determination of its people offer a glimmer of hope. Ukrainians from all walks of life have come together to defend their country, demonstrating unwavering courage and resolve in the face of conflict. Regardless of the outcome of the conflict, the Ukrainian people have demonstrated their unwavering commitment to their nation's future and their right to self-determination. Pause 2S, Section 10, Data Analytics and the Road to Recovery. In understanding the multifaceted impact of the Russia-Ukraine war, data analytics has played a pivotal role. Through comprehensive dashboards and meticulous data collection, researchers and analysts have been able to quantify and visualize the extent of the devastation and the progress towards recovery. Pause 2S. One of the key dashboards highlights the humanitarian toll, showcasing the number of displaced persons, casualties, and the regions most affected by the conflict. This data is crucial for directing aid and resources to where they are needed the most. For instance, the International Red Cross and various NGOs rely on these insights to coordinate their efforts on the ground. Pause 2S. Another significant dashboard focuses on the economic impact, illustrating the damage to infrastructure, loss of GDP, and the cost of rebuilding. These analytics provide a foundation for international financial institutions and governments to plan and allocate funds for reconstruction. The World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, for example, use these insights to develop financial packages and support programs for Ukraine. Pause 2S. The dashboards also delve into the psychological impact of the war, with surveys and data points highlighting the mental health crisis facing the Ukrainian population. This information is vital for healthcare providers and policymakers to design and implement mental health support systems and services. Pause 2S. Additionally, data analytics has been instrumental in documenting and analyzing war crimes. By mapping incidents and corroborating evidence, analysts can assist international bodies like the International Criminal Court in building strong cases against perpetrators. Pause 2S. The future of Ukraine's recovery is heavily reliant on the continuous use of data analytics. These insights enable a targeted and effective approach to rebuilding and reconciliation. As the nation moves forward, the integration of real-time data and advanced analytics will be essential in navigating the complex path to peace and prosperity. Pause 2S. In conclusion, data analytics is not just a tool for understanding the past and present impact of the war, but also a beacon guiding Ukraine towards a resilient and hopeful future.